Does thine eyes deceive you? No, it is I, Valkonos, back from the dead, and I'm here to bring you some Ladder Wars action as a best of 3 series between DBD, Lenorm, and ODM Hannodins. So we are going to be having Dark Elves versus High Elves in this matchup as old as time. We will have Lenorm on the Dark Elves, and Hannodins will be commanding the High Elves. So for the Dark Elf army, it is going to be Dread Spears mixed in with the Hellebroni for the front line. A rather cheap front line, going to be just here to kind of hold that line while the rest of the units does some good work. So we're going to be having some Dark Riders with shields for some nice, quick, cheap, efficient mobility. And we do have some Coldwood Knights for a little bit more stopping power on that front line with their armor piercing and bonus versus large. However, the core of this formation is where it is going to be winning the game, as we have triple Scourge Runner Chariots with a nice little core with the Blades of the Blood Queen, double K-Knight Assassin, and of course Marathi going to be staying in nice and safe with these guys with their Guardian ability, so they will be keeping all of the heroes up and going for just a little bit longer. So for the 2 K-Knight Assassins, we do have Web of Shadows, and one of them is going to be bringing that Assassin's Trophy, just kind of get a nice little debuff to any Lords or Heroes on the other side, minus 24 melee attack and melee defense. As for Marathi, she is going to be bringing pretty much what you'd expect for her. She has the Wand of Corredon, we have Soul Stealer, she will not be leaving home without that, no siree, Heartrender and the Dark Sword, Enchanting Beauty, and of course Greater Arcane Conduit with Life Leeching. Really going to be slinging that Soul Stealer around the battlefield, but that is going to be it. Really, that center rank's going to be the bread and butter for that Dark Elf formation. Now for the High Elves, they are going to be having a little bit more elite front line, as we do have Silver and Guard going to be taking that front rank. So they are going to be quite a cut above those Dread Spears, and they do have a nice little bit of magic resist on top of that. However, we are going to be seeing a double mage here, one of which is going to be the Mage of Fire, rolling in with Burning Head and Fireball, and the other one is a Mage of Death with Spirit Leech, and going to be bringing a couple other items as well, just to kind of help with that power regen. As we have the Stouter Wood Staff, giving that greater increase to power reserves, and the Book of Hoeth, increasing that power recharge rate. Both good stuff, kind of imitating that Arcane Conduit. And then for the secondary ranks, we do have Lothran Seaguard on both sides, kind of providing that dual purpose with their long spears. You would be given that anti-large, giving a little bit extra protection to that juicy middle, which is triple archers with their nice 180 range. We do have an Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, really going to be pulling the Dark Elves to them, some Spearmen protecting that, and then in the back line, it is going to be Illyrian Reavers, kind of to counter that Dark Rider play. And then for the Lord, it is going to be a Princess up in the sky, going to be flying on over to the Dark Elf side, going to be trying to get some shots in with her own long range, but she will need to stay clear of those Scourge Runners, and she is just going to be bringing Foe Seeker on her, and that is going to be it. And let's get things rolling, as the Dark Elves are going to be pushing forward. Scourge Runners taking a few shots off at this Princess here, and a Fireball as well going to be arcing its way from the High Elf side, looking to bring down these Scourge Runners. And the High Elves definitely have the tools necessary to deal with these Scourge Runners. They have plenty of units. The Fireball, the Spirit Leech, and those Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers all should do very nicely against these Scourge Runners and that Princess as well, trying to dodge the shots that she can, just kind of going back and forth there. But she is going to be taking a little volley, just a few shots into her side, where she's able to get most of those shots falling amongst the sands of the Hekara, doing a good job so far. But the Dark Elves going to be closing that distance, as the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers now going to be turning their attention to the Scourge Runner Chariots, definitely the target to be firing at. And that Princess did take a few shots that probably didn't want to be taken. A nice volley there, though, by the Scourge Runners, using that nice missile fire to do a nice bit of chip damage. But another Spirit Leech and Fireball going to be arcing its way, trying to really bring down the Scourge Runner Chariot very early on into the fight, able to land, take down one of the models, as those Eagle Bolt Throwers continuing to pluck away, already down below 50% health before even reaching the main fight. So very well played so far on the High Elf side, really kind of focusing down the units that need to be focused down, because that is one of them. The rest is pretty much just chaff, and the other one is Marathi you have to deal with. But on the far flank, the Dark Riders are going to be circling around, as the Illyrian Reavers are mounting their own kind of face to really face off against them, as the charge is going to be coming underway. Dark Dark Riders charging the Illyrian Reavers, and both sides colliding on the battlefield. So far, the Illyrian Reavers are doing very well, but a nice rear charge coming in from these Dark Riders right into the back of these Illyrian Reavers, and they are going to be taking these guys down very quickly. They were losing out against those Illyrian Reavers, but with that sandwich, they're going to be going very nicely on that. So going into those center ranks as those Scourge Runners able to just really push right on through, trying to get into these archers, and a nice burning head. Going to be taking those Hellebronite down a peg or two, and it can be going right through into their Dread Spears, hitting the silver in a bit, but with that missile or that magic resist, they will be able to kind of tank that damage just a little better. Center rank is in a little bit of disarray. It's a nice one to create on going down on top of those nice tightly packed archers. Illyrian Reavers and these archers going to be getting pushed back. Cold of the Knights do suffer as well, and all of these Blades of Bug Queen just getting focused down by all of this archer fire, and they quickly are just down to just slivers of HP, still 30 of them left, but they are going to be running for the hills as a Spirit Leech going to be going down, definitely needed, as Morathi is getting very low, able to catch the Princess and the Silverin Guard here, doing some nice bit of damage there. Only those 2 units hit though, but it will allow her to heal back up just a little bit. Cold Knights are going to be getting kind of escorted off by these Illyrian Reavers, but those Dark Riders should be able to come in and deal with that little bit of mobility. The Eagle Boat Throwers, seeing the approaching Dread Spears, are going to be dropping their unit and allowing the Spearmen to kind of tank it, but the Dark Riders can be charging in, looking to kind of get into these 2 remaining archers. Don't really want to be tangling with those Lothern Sea Guard, but in the center ranks, we have 2 of the mages, the Mage of Fire and that Mage of Death, are in a very bad spot here. Both of these assassins, sensing blood in the water, are going to be trying to take off the magic for the High Elves, as they are kind of a little struggling in that balance of power, but with this takedown from the Mage of Fire and that Mage of Death will really help push them back into this game, as that Mage of Fire quickly taking the damage down, but a little separation between them and the K9 Assassins, but still lots of damage being dealt to some very valuable targets, as the rest of the units are really kind of pushed back. That Princess so far has been kind of delegated to defensive duty at this point with how much damage she took early on from those Scourge Runners, and another Soul Stealer going to be hitting her Legion Reavers and those Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers, doing a nice bit of damage here, and a Web of Shadows hitting all of these units in the middle, able to really take down that Mage of Death and the Mage of Fire, which I think has already fallen to the sands, and that Mage of Death is quickly on that same path, being routed with just slivers of HP left. And the archers just trying to salvage what they can for the High Elves, as now the Dark Elves have swung that balance power back into their favor. That center pocket has gone quite well. Hellebronite and even the Blades of the Golden Queen, only down to 2 models left, are still fighting for Morathi. They will be fighting that Guardian ability even with just those 2 units. So as long as they're on the field, those heroes and Lord for the Dark Elves is going to be a little bit harder to bring down. Another one crate on right into the tightly packed Spearmen on that flank, and the Dark Riders really trying to clean things up, and with how few Illyrian Reavers are left, they might be able to handle themselves fairly well. Scourge Runners, on the other hand, are getting very low themselves on just slivers of HP, and both of which do end up routing. The shots coming in from the archers is enough to push them back, and that is going to be breathing a sigh of relief for the High Elves, as they still had some ammunition to be slinging their way. But Morathi and both of these K9 Assassins are still very formidable foes at this point. It looks like we hear another Soul Stealer going down somewhere and is off in the background, as that Princess, trying to get out of the way, is going to be pushing herself right to the edge of the map, and she does not want to be that close, especially with her so low in health. The Soul Stealer does dissipate, but she does end up routing, and off the field she goes, and that balance of power is shifting into the Dark Elves' favor more and more, especially with their Lord gone. All of these units are just going to be trying to finish off what they can, and staying amongst the enemy Spearmen here is really going to be very helpful with all of these archers kind of on the periphery. This ring of archer units, plenty of ammunition left on these Lothern Sea Guard, and these other archers still have quite a few shots and can be trying to bring down the heroes, but they are small little targets, and they are mixing themselves up with the enemy units. Can be a lot harder to land the shots that they need to. Illyrian Reaver, Spearmen, and units just continue to rout from this formidable trio as they just try and bring down the Mage of Death. Can be trying to get a Spirit Leash off, does get that off, but she is getting very low herself and trying to get some more win some magic back, but she is going to be getting just a little too close to those 3 and is going to be routing herself. Even the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers trying to get in on the action, because these guys are staying. Actually, the artillery pieces should be off kind of more towards where those archers are, but it's not going to matter at this point. They are so low in terms of units, and all these archers just trying to bring down. One of the K9 assassins is getting rather low, but I don't think it is going to be enough. The balance power is just too heavily in the Dark Elf favor at this point, and especially with this, another Soul Stealer in the late game, it is going to be just clipping these Lothran Seekers, and it does hit them. Hits these spearmen, going to be pretty much hitting Morathi up to her heel cap, and with that, the Lothran Seeker are getting quite low. They need to stabilize. They need to put some distance between them. They have the most ammunition left for all the high elf units, and Morathi and these K9 assassins definitely seeing that, can be trying to get out in a web of shadows as well. Going to be getting popped off on these guys, bringing them down, getting them their leadership all the way down. They will end up routing, and with that, I just don't think there's enough ammunition left, and that is going to be army losses. Dark Elves do pull their way back, and with that, Lenorm is going to take game 1 of the series against Hannodins. So let's take a look at that after battle report and see how things fared on both sides. So for the Dark Elves, by Lenorm, Morathi getting 1,700, both of the K9 assassins doing respectably well on top of that. Dread Spears doing okay, nothing to be excited about on there. Hellbroni 500, and then unfortunately the Blades of the Blood Queen only getting 86 in total damage value. All of those archers, it just focused them down so quickly, and it was a very good target to be taken down, very expensive unit. Unfortunately, that did mean that the K9 assassins and Morathi did have kind of free reign. Even though they were little targets, they are very important ones to bring down. The other kind of focus was the Scourge Runners, who were able to get some nice, decent value. The one that get taken out early, not so much, but almost 1,300 on these guys, doing pretty good on that front. As for the High Elf side of things, Princess only getting 1,100. A few early volleys from those Scourge Runners really kind of pushed her back onto the defensive in the late game, and with that, she really did kind of stay to the outskirts and really wasn't able to get onto Morathi and do as much damage, and she didn't have the benefit of the healing that Morathi was able to get with her Soul Stealer, so she didn't have that longevity in that fight. Rest of the units, nothing really to write home about. Unfortunately, the Silverin Guard, while they are a bit more expensive than the Dread Spears, they really didn't have any super good targets to deal with. The Scourge Runner Chariots were probably one of them, but Scourge Runners can kind of circle around them all day long, and they were able to just push right through and get onto the units that mattered, which was those archers. Lothran Seaguard on the hand did very well, 1,900 on those two. Elite Run Reavers did all right, but they did get kind of a little caught out in that opening stage, even though they should have been able to win against those Dark Riders. Getting sandwiched by them definitely is not going to be doing you any favors on that side. But that is going to be it for game 1. Let's update that score as Lenorm takes game 1. That is going to push us onto a 1-0 lead going into game 2. So let's get right into that. Game 2 has the Beastmen pushing the Empire up against the very walls of Altdorf, as Lenorm looks to try and finish off the series, as Hannodins will be using the Empire here on their home turf to try and extend it to game 3. So for the Beastmen, going to be led by Torox the Brass Bull, and he's going to be bringing Brass Body. We have Slaughterer's Call as well as Bloodgreed, getting himself some nice buffs in melee and some very nice staying power with that 40% damage resist on that ability with that 120-second recharge. But of course, he is always pretty much going to be in melee, so that recharge is going to be going pretty quick on that end. Frontline is going to be triple Bestigor herds, a armor-piercing unit can be charging forth. Now, they are rather susceptible to missile fire, but if they do get engaged in melee, there isn't really a whole lot of Empire infantry that can really stand up to them, and they'll also do quite well against Empire cavalry to boot on top of that. For the rest of the units, we do have some Ungor Raiders, 3 units of those trying to just get overwhelm the Empire with their firepower. And with that stock as well, they're able to kind of get a lot closer than they otherwise would, because they do sacrifice that 115 range with that kind of nice closing that they can get with that ability. We have some nice mobility, Chaos Warhounds, Centaurs across that back line. What Beastman army would come without those units? And we are going to be seeing a double caster on this end, both of which going to be on there. It looks like we have Tuskor and a Razorgore Chariot. We have a Bray Shaman of Wild bringing Traderkin, and the Bray Shaman of Beast going to be coming in with Transformation of Kadan. Always a very powerful powerful spell there, but with Traderkin, both are rather expensive spells, so you're not going to be getting a whole lot of uses when you're going to be using both of those spells separately. Some Ungor Spearman Herd and the Destroyers of the Drakewald getting a little extra poison into the mix as well. But otherwise, a fairly straightforward army for the Beastmen, and that is going to be attack, and the Empire will stand against them with the people of the Empire watching them from the walls of Altdorf, when they will be having triple war wagons up in the front, and be trying to really kind of drag out the Beastmen. Now, these guys don't have as much speed as those Senegors, and they're going to try and just kind of plucker away at them with that 334 armor-piercing missile strength. And, of course, they do have Volkmar the Grim to support them on his chariot, and he is going to be a fearsome force, but the Beastmen will have units to deal with that. He does have his Bound Banishment, of course, his Jade Griffin, the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, Grand Shield of Faith, and the Grand Soul Fire Bombardment. For the infantry, we do have Spearmen, we have the Sigmar Sons, and then in that back line, it is going to be Halberdiers for that anti-large. Now, they are going to have a few units, so those are going to be good against the Senegors and kind of help to try and drag down the chariots and Torox himself, as we have the Empire Knights for that mobility, and they are going to be rather mindful because those Senegors are going to be able to run laps around them, but that is going to be the army pretty compact for the Empire. They're going to be trying to get as many shots in with the war wagons, but keep their infantry close so they can pull them right back into their own lines, because they do have to be very mindful of the Beastmen's strength with their speed, and the shots going into the best scores, these war wagons are probably going to be doing quite well with those shots, just kind of really mowing them down, getting some nice damage so far, as all three units are trying to focus down this one in the center, because with those best scores gone, they're going to have a lot harder time trying to get through all of this infantry, especially all of those halberdiers in the back. And we have a fireball as well, looking like it's going to be landing in a bunch of trees, not landing against any of the kind of really important targets, which is the Torox and both of these chariot casters, as the rest of the Beastmen, though, are going to try to circle around, put pressure on to the Empires. They're going to be slowly kind of kiting away with these war wagons, playing it very cautiously and not giving the Beastmen any opportunities to really get in and just kind of cause havoc amongst their front line. And in the meantime, Volkmar is going to be charging on forward, doing what he does best and just dealing with infantry. Now, he does have to be a little mindful with these Ungor Raiders firing in, but a nice soul fire bombardment right into these very expensive units. Now, they are able to dodge that for the most part, but they still take a massive amount of damage from that volley, and these best scores just continuing to take volley after volley from these war wagons. Empire is playing it very well so far, being very patient, and they can be a little reckless with Volkmar. He does have that regen, just doesn't want to get caught by Torox and the rest of these chariots, as they are charging right on forward, and Volkmar may need a little bit of assistance. Torox is going to try and do some nice, but Grand Shield of Faith is going to be popped, giving himself that damage resist, and the Empire Knights charging forward into that front line, and the Spearmen a nice pick here, getting those Senegors and those Chaos Warhounds off the fight, and these Halberdiers are going to be responding as well, trying to get into those units, but the Halberdiers here are going to make quick work of those Spearmen, and these Empire Knights as well, taking quite a bit of damage from Torox and the Brave Shamans as they just try and harass Volkmar. They're kind of pushing him away from the rest of the infantry, and the Halberdiers are going to be here to kind of salvage the day, and a nice burning head's going to be going through these Ungor Spearmen, doing a nice bit of damage there. Would have been nice to also hit these Bestigors, but dealing with these guys very quickly is a nice bit. Hopefully aren't going to be hitting their own Halberdiers, and it looks like, oh no, they are going to take a bit of friendly fire, quite a bit of friendly fire at that. Torox does get pushed back, taking quite a bit from Volkmar and company, as all these war wagons do kind of turn their attention onto him, as a fireball point blank range does land against a Brave Shaman of Wild, doing a nice bit of damage. And Volkmar fighting in does not want to be really fighting in amongst the trees. He does not have that benefit that the Beastmen have in the woods. He is a large unit and does not want to get caught up amongst all these, but he's getting pinned in now. 2 units of Senegors really holding him in place as the Brave Shaman and Torox kind of rolls his way out of that fight, but Volkmar is in a very bad spot. He needs to try and clear his way out as he's taking a lot of damage here. Torox is going to be more than happy to stay in that fight for as long as he can. It looks like we're going to be getting a Traderkin hitting these Empire Knights, hitting these war wagons, and Volkmar himself doing a nice bit of damage to a lot of units. Halberdiers getting absolutely shattered here on that front. Another burning head dealing with these Ungors, but the center ranks, and Volkmar is on the run as Torox is just charging for it, but he's taking quite a few shots in the face from it. But the Beastmen are slightly ahead in the balanced power. Now, of course, it is Beastmen, and that is going to be too expected, as Volkmar is just kind of panicking at this point, using his abilities, trying to just deal with the Centaurs, give him some space, but they are just trying to pin him in and are doing a fairly decent job of that. As the Spearmen, everything is just trying to peel things off of Volkmar. Volkmar seems to be getting a little caught up as he's just trying to separate himself from Torx. Of course, Torx is not doing too hot either, as these war wagons don't have a whole lot of room left to run, trying to get some shots in and just buying Volkmar more and more time. Centaurs have been peeled off for the time being, but we are going to be getting a Feral Manticore down onto the field for the first time and seeing that Bright Wizard, who has nowhere really to run, no quick steed, and Torx and that Feral Manticore going to be making very, very quick work of this one. That Bright Wizard has probably cast its last spell of the game. I don't see any way for this guy to get out of this fight. He's in a very bad place, caught between a rock and two hard places, as the Feral Manticore and both of that Brace Shaman and Torx going to make quick work. Torx, seeing that that job is done, going to be looking elsewhere for more targets, and the clock is ticking though, as Volkmar is going to be healing up bit by bit, but he has lost pretty much all of his support. There's so much units left for the Beastmen. All of these Ungor Raiders, there's nothing left to really threaten them. All of the Empire Knights, if you kind of take a look around, there is no mobility left for the Empire. Those Centaurs have done a very good job of dealing with them, and that is just going to allow all of these Ungor Raiders to just sit nice and safe and just pepper Volkmar with as many arrows as they can. And Torx on the hunt once more, charges forward, just trying to bring down that chariot. All of these units, Chaos Warhounds, everything, just trying to keep him pinned down in place as the chariot just goes up and down over the hills, trying to just get away from all of these Beastmen, and all of his support just seems to be rather absent, as the Beastmen pulling more and more ahead in that balance of power. These war wagons now separated from Volkmar with the quick speed of these Chaos Warhounds in hot pursuit. We also have the Brace Shaman also going to be getting here, and their ammunition is pretty much empty at this point. They're not going to be able to do a whole lot to that Brace Shaman, and Torx is just continuing on the hunt for Volkmar, as Volkmar just rolling over the hills, just trying to stay away, dropping some bombardments, as these Ungor Raiders do a very nice job, good heads up play, keeping them out of that fight. Although they are able to regroup a bit with the Empire chariots, the Volkmar is even getting close to his healing cap, and Torx just landing a nice meaty hit into the wheels of that chariot. I mean, he is almost as large as it is, as he's going to be kind of sharing the glory here. Emperor Knights do make a little comeback, but they won't be lasting too long. Down goes Volkmar, and with that, the chances for the Empire, as that is going to be army losses. Lenorm taking game 2 and the series 2-0. So we'll update the score to reflect that, and then we'll go over the score real quick here, how all the units did fare. So Torx getting 1900, forever on the hunt of Volkmar the Grim, making him the prime target of that fight. Now, both of the Brace Shamans did quite well themselves. Now, Brace Shaman, a beast, getting 1600, that is in melee. That is not from any of the spell casting. That Feral Manticore does not count towards that summon, and the Brace Shaman, a while, getting probably quite a bit of that as well. Did drop a Traderkin, able to get some damage from that spell casting, but lots of damage from those chariots. Rest of the units, kind of quickly go through those. Besticors, one unit did very well, 1253, 200, 760. Some of them really did get beaten down by those war wagons quite a bit, and then the Centaurs doing very well dealing with the Empire mobility, making sure that they were able to really focus down Volkmar with their Ungor Raiders at the end. Even though they didn't get a whole lot of it, they had quite a bit of ammunition left. Volkmar was not going to be able to outrun all of those arrows. As for the Empire units, Volkmar only getting 1700. Bright Wizard, I think you really do need the Bright Wizard on horse. Just having him on foot is just makes him so very, very susceptible to the quick mobility of the Beastmen. I mean, Torx, all these Brace Shamans, just that having that speed, able to catch out that Bright Wizard. I don't know if it necessarily would have saved this game, but definitely would have allowed that Bright Wizard to cast a few more spells in the meantime, but instead of getting caught out like it did. Rest of the Empire units not really getting too much value, even all the Halberdiers, rather expensive, unfortunately not doing too great. Fell very quickly to that Beastmen rush. War Wagons, on the other hand, doing some decent work, getting 1000 for a couple of those. But in the end, it was not enough, as they do fall in front of the gates of Altdorf. And with that, Lenorm takes the series 2-0, and that is going to give his team a nice little buff to the Ladder Wars, which kind of just jumped into that. It is a week-long competition between a few of the clans, just kind of on Anticity's ladder. Whoever can compile the most wins in the week is going to be taking the final victory for their clan. And we'll see if we can keep you guys up to speed with all of that action as much as we can. It is good to be back, and I do hope to continue doing more and more of this as the coming days are slowly progressing towards Warhammer 3. But without further ado, we are going to close things out. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.